Salutations and welcome to Foxx Plays Kerbal Space Program, the 365-day challenge. So, first off, I want to kind of apologize because my January 1st video, my very first video in this series is it's a bit late. But I figured, hey, it's still Thursday somewhere. So, I think without too much fanfare, we're going to just jump straight into the VAB and talk about our payload. So, for the first mission, I think something simple. So, nothing simpler in KSP, really, than a satellite. Just get into orbit, put it in orbit, leave it alone. So that's what we're going to do, I think. And this is my satellite. It's called Legacy Sat 1, and well, I'm using some mods for my 365-day challenge. The first one here is Kerbal Attachment System, and these bins have things in them. That'll become important later, but I'll show you later. So apart from that, we've got a pretty standard launch stage. Note that the satellite itself has plenty of fuel. Excuse me. So the upper stage includes the new C7 brand adapter. It's a 1.25 to 2.5 adapter, but it has fuel in it, which is great. Just a standard fuel tank and a skipper engine. My lower stage is essentially an orange tank, but it has a smaller fuel tank on the bottom to prevent overheating on the mainsail engine. That's a trick a lot of people don't seem to understand is, yeah, orange tanks are great, just don't mount engines to them because they'll overheat, because the calculation is based on, has something to do with the distance between the engine and the center of mass of the tank above it, and the greater that distance, the more heat it generates. I don't know. Point being, if you put a small tank on the bottom and attach the mainsail to that, you can run it at max power and it won't overheat. Anyway, so let's get this thing in orbit. Alright, sorry for the long load time, and hoping that when my skills at video editing get a bit better, I'll be able to edit the load screens out. Alright, so here we are on the launch pad, and well, let's kick things off. So this satellite is going to go into a geostationary orbit. That's the idea anyway. Whether or not we get there is we'll see. I have plenty of fuel for it, but my skill as a pilot is not necessarily up to snuff. Anyway, we're gonna throttle back just to conserve fuel. So about the 365-day challenge, I want to explain that a little bit. It's not my challenge. Somebody else came up with it on the Kerbal Space Program forums. But the idea is that you perform a mission or a part of a mission every day for 365 days. That's a pretty tall order. Just starting our gravity turn here, a bit late, but we're going to have a very steep trajectory, so I'm not too worried about it. So yeah, part of a mission, or a mission or a part of a mission. So what that means is, by the definition of the guy who created this challenge, that constitutes a launch from the surface to orbit, a return from orbit to the surface of a planet, a departure burn for an interplanetary trip, or a capture burn around another planet. And moons don't count for whatever reason. But this constitutes a launch from the surface to orbit, so should be fine. Passing out of the thickest atmosphere, so I'm going to throttle up my engine. Not too worried about terminal velocity at this point. Burning away. the other major mod that I'm using for this, I have a whole bunch of mods, but the only other one that you'll see at all is Kerbal Engineer, and it's like MechJeb, but it's for one thing, it completely removes a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just using MechJeb for orbital information, not for piloting my ship for me. Well, Kerbal Engineer does that, and I think it does it even cleaner. And it doesn't even have the possibility of autopilot. It just doesn't do that. It just gives info. I love it. So a stationary orbit. I'll talk a little bit about that. So around Kerbin, a stationary orbit is an orbit which the time it takes to complete an orbit is exactly 1 day. So it appears from Kerbin to stay in one place. So that's defined by the orbital period. The orbital period has to be exactly a day. Now, a lot of people do this. This can be achieved, at least in a circular orbit. Cut my engine there. Actually going a little bit too fast. Now, that can be achieved at an altitude of roughly 3 million meters. It's 2.868 change. But and that's for a circular orbit, perfectly circular. And a lot of people get crazy about fussing over their apoapsis and periapsis, making them exactly the same, exactly that height. But what you really need is the semi-major axis right there. That needs to be a very, very specific number. And even if you're at a very eccentric orbit, as long as your semi-major axis is the correct value, you'll have an orbital period of exactly 1 day. And that's what we're aiming for. If it's a little eccentric, I'm not going to worry about it. If it's very eccentric, well... Anyway, we're just going to cruise up to our apoapsis. Let me set a maneuver node here. Actually, let me just... Boom. Alright, so that's our maneuver. Let's just cruise up there, just because I don't want it to take too long. Very simple mission, I think. It's a fun mission, though, I think. Sorry I'm going so slow. I just I don't want to miss my maneuver. So I do that all the time. I just zip around and I'm like, crap, my maneuver. So coming up on it though, and alright, and alright, that's close enough. Get us turned around here. So I'm gonna try and eject this stage in such a way that it collides with Kerbin. I'm gonna use my probe itself to finish the burn. Alright, that looks good. And I know that I have plenty of fuel in this. I do want to deploy my solar panels. I probably should have done that earlier. Scared me for a moment. I thought I'd lost power. That would have been terrible. But here we are. Panels extending. And I put an antenna on there, because why not? And throttle up. Alright, so this is too high. So we're going to spin around here. Alright, just using that to give me an approximate. And we'll speed up time. It's still 2 hours away, so I feel pretty confident about giving it a pretty hefty time scale. You know, I am finding it hard to think of things to talk about. I can see where where that's going to be a problem eventually. So, alright, should be our last maneuver, more or less. And we're aiming to get that semi-major axis down. See, that's still too high, I think. Yeah, that's still too high, I think. That looks wrong. I might have the wrong info here. Available orbital period. 5 hours. No, that's right. It's actually low because a Kerbal day is 6 hours exactly. So I'll just raise that slightly. It's a bit too high. And oh, way too much. Just faffing about it here a little bit. And alright. Well, that'll be good enough, I think. So that's almost a synchronous orbit. Alright. Legacy Sat 1. There she is in all her glory. So, I think that's a pretty good first mission. Bit late, but like I said, it's still 1st of January somewhere. Anyway, I hope to have the second installment on time and continue with this challenge, see where it takes us. Anyway, I have been Foxonius, and I hope to see you next time.